Part 102. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 1035. It can be said that the Xiangbing Company is the first group of Blue Star people to come to the Lunar Palace area, except for a few high-level officials in China. Passing through the wide corridor where the Eternal Guards were standing guard, Ge Xiaolun and the others couldn't help but look at them from the corner of their eyes. The configuration of the Eternal Guards was really too luxurious. The power armor looks like a knight's armor in fantasy themes, a combination of a gun blade and a deformable shield, and there are folded mechanical flying wings on the back. Although I don't know the strength of these warriors, judging from the solemn aura exuding from them, they must be very difficult to mess with. However, Ge Xiaolun and the others are not too worried, because these Ilal's warriors are not hostile to them, but will be allies in fighting together in the future. Of course, the people of Ilal still look down on the Chinese army, and it will probably be a long time before the two sides can coordinate their operations. Xiaolun, what do you think the goddess of the world of justice wants to do when she sees us? Lu Chuang asked Ge Xiaolun in a low voice, feeling a little uneasy. Master Chuang, what's wrong with you today? This is not like your usual self. Besides, China is now part of the world of justice. We are just like meeting the supreme leader before, so relax. Ge Xiaolun was not very nervous. In fact, Lu Chuang was not nervous either. It was just that he could vaguely feel a dull pressure coming from him since entering the moon range. In order to test whether Ge Xiaolun was the same as him, he asked out loud. Unexpectedly, Ge Xiaolun seemed to be fine. After everyone passed through the vast and long corridor, they could see through the transparent dome a majestic palace standing alone in front of them. The main body of its structure is made of pure white unknown stones, dotted with exquisite reliefs and cloud patterns, combined with some soft and warm light golden glow, making it look like a temple. When everyone actually entered the palace, they found that its interior was far less luxurious than its appearance. Its only feature was its wideness and extremely huge space, as if it were the residence of a giant god. I'm a good boy, I can fit a space carrier in here. Lu Chuang let out an exclamation, and Ge Xiaolun and others had similar reactions. It's not that they have little knowledge, but the layout and architectural concept of the entire palace highlight a kind of majesty, without the splendor and luxury that people think a palace should have. After entering the palace at the same time, everyone in the Xiangbing Company discovered that the ones on duty here were no longer the previous Eternal Guards, but replaced by high-level angels. The Errol's warrior who was leading the way also automatically stepped back and left. A high-level angel with an unknown appearance wearing a face mask had obviously been waiting for a long time. You guys just follow me, the goddess is in the hall ahead. But I am here to warn you, remember to be disrespectful to the goddess, otherwise everyone here will be your enemy. After speaking, the high-ranking angel led Ge Xiaolun and his party through the passages extending in all directions in the palace, and finally stopped in front of a closed door. After waiting for a few seconds, the door opened to both sides, revealing the inner view leading to the main hall at the end of the hall. It seems that you two are the new generation of Kamigawa's power, the Noxing god of war. Judging from the looks of it, you are still in the early stages of the super gene, and even the nature of your own divine body has not yet fully emerged. Facing Binghua sitting on the throne on the high platform in front, Ge Xiaolun and others were a little nervous, because they didn't know if it was an illusion, but they felt that the person sitting there was not a female angel, but a star as dazzling as the sun. Among them, Ge Xiaolun and Lu Chuang felt the most deeply. Lu Chuang only felt a lot of pressure at this moment. After the Noxing god of war gene is fully revealed, one of its characteristics is that it can break through the safety threshold and improve its own dark energy conversion efficiency regardless of losses. This made Lu Chuang most aware of the fluctuations in energy. If he hadn't known that Binghua was not an enemy, he might have carried out his battle axe. Others like Qilin, Yaoan, Qiangwei, and others were not abnormal because they could not feel Binghua's energy fluctuations at all. Your Excellency Goddess, my current codename is the power of the galaxy, not the power of the Kamigawa. In addition, we are very confused as to why the goddess summoned us. After all, we are just soldiers of the Chinese Special Forces. Seeing that no one among his companions chose to come forward, Ge Xiaolun took over Binghua's words to avoid any embarrassing situation at the scene. The power of the Milky Way is the power of the galaxy. Anyway, it represents the anti-void God-making project. I called you here for no other reason than because you are too weak and need to be strengthened. Otherwise, if you fall in the subsequent war, it will be a pity for the supergenetic engineering in you. In response to Binghua's straightforward words, even Ge Xiaolun, who was the calmest, felt a sense of depression in his heart, let alone others. However, no one present dared to refute, because although Binghua did not take action, the Xiangbing company was well aware of the combat power of the high-level angels under her command, and as their boss, Binghua was definitely not that weak. Looking at your appearance, you're still not convinced. It's better not to be convinced, so that you can be motivated and become stronger in the future. Binghua chuckled, then raised a finger, and the surrounding space instantly changed, and everyone in the hall came directly to a strange and desolate land. What's going on? Everyone in the Xiangbing company cried out in surprise. This scene was really unbelievable. This is virtual heaven, an interesting thing developed by the angel civilization King Tianji. You can think of this place as an independent space, isolated from the outside world. There's also time and space rows, right? Don't forget it, your wormhole can't jump out of here. In words that are easy for you to understand, you can treat this place as an independent small world. Binghua was still sitting on his throne, and gave specific examples in case they didn't understand. Apart from her throne, there are no other civilizational creations here, only desolate earth and gravel. Your Majesty Goddess, why did you bring us here? He doesn't just want to see us make a fool of himself. Binghua was almost amused by Ge Xiaolun's words. It had been a long time since anyone had spoken to her like this. Everyone who met her in the justice world was cautious, fearing that they would make a mistake and make her unhappy. That's not the case. Just because you are not worthy of my action, I transferred you here to tell you something. By the way, I will give you a clear understanding of your future and give you a choice. Although Shenzhou has joined the world of justice, as the Alal's people told you, I will not force you to do anything. Unless it's a time when the life and death of the just world is at stake, I usually act according to the rules of the just world. For some reasons, I really want to train you, but if I give you too much help in China, other worlds will be dissatisfied. I believe you also know the principle of not worrying about scarcity but inequality. Binghua is the leader of the world of justice and a goddess recognized by all worlds. She can freely use the resources of the world of justice or strengthen the world of gods. But you cannot use your own privileges to massively aid a certain world. If you do this, the day will not be far before the disintegration of the just world. Needless to say, the world of Alals, as a civilization led by Qi, has a relationship with Binghua. During the great transfer of Alals, Binghua deliberately used his flagship as a means of transportation. But after the development of the justice world gradually got on track, the Alal civilization began to develop on its own, and even the war to recapture Alals was completed independently. Although other civilizations in the just world later participated in the counterattack against the Eternal Ascended Ones, it was enough to illustrate Binghua's persistence in certain matters. Ge Xiaolun, as the most obsessive among the first batch of soldiers in the Xiangbing company, immediately understood the meaning of Binghua's words, and when his companions looked a little puzzled, he simply explained. The goddess means to break away from China and become her direct warriors. In this way, if she invests resources in us, other worlds in the justice world will not gossip, because the goddess is cultivating her own subordinates, not showing preference for China. Does it make any difference? Lu Chuang asked doubtfully. He could understand Ge Xiaolun's words, but he couldn't understand why he had to take such a big detour. The goddess was not the leader of a just world, and what she wanted to do was not a matter of words. Master Chuang, the difference is huge. Ge Xiaolun didn't elaborate, just looked at Binghua Road. Goddess, why are you going to such trouble? As far as I know, Justice World has nearly 10,000 worlds under its umbrella. Why did you come to us alone? No, 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 you made a mistake. You are not a special case. The God's Throne world where I live draws elite warriors from the entire world of justice every year to fill the God Guards and the demigod army. The reason why I want to talk to you alone is just because of the super genes in your body. If enough resources are invested in you, you will quickly grow into gods. There are not many fighting gods in the entire world of justice. They are extremely valuable fighting forces and are somewhat supermodels for a certain world. That's why I want you to become independent from China. Goddess, I swore an oath when I joined the army that I would never betray my country, so please forgive me for not being able to promise you. Ge Xiaolun refused directly, but Binghua was not angry at all. It seems that you are still limited by your own knowledge. China has become a part of the righteous world. Loyalty to China means loyalty to the righteous world, which means loyalty to me. This is not betrayal. Ge Xiaolun and others were silent. Others in the Xiangbing company heard what Ge Xiaolun said just now and understood the price of their choice. After Binghua found that he couldn't shake them with words, he planned to put some practical pressure on them. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 1037. Binghua opened his palm and the surging dark energy began to gather and undergo complex energy transformation, and then quickly turned into a blazing spherical energy group, exuding a dazzling glow. Do you know what this is? The mimic star is what you know as the sun. Ge Xiaolun and others all looked horrified. Although the fireball, which was no bigger than a basketball, seemed ordinary, there were no ordinary people present, and as super soldiers, their perception of energy was not that weak. After Binghua finished speaking, he clenched his palm and directly extinguished the miniature mimic star, which made Ge Xiaolun and others look stunned. The sun of the Chiwa star system is like this mimic star in front of my enemies, and can be easily extinguished. Not to mention China, this universe is far more cruel than what you have seen, especially now that there is no suppression from the holy Kesha. After Binghua finished speaking, a star map appeared and quickly moved into the area of the Pocket Nebula. This is the Porker Nebula. When holy Kesha was in power, there were conflicts among the god-making civilizations here. Most of them were small-scale fleets and armies. But now they are unscrupulous and have begun to use any means to win, massacres, planet destruction, and even genocide. Some information collected by Merlot Heavenly Court began to flash in the projection, among which the tragic situation of Hayden civilization was particularly eye-catching. Of course, in Binghua's view, the Hayden civilization was not a good thing. When he and the Thane civilization committed massacres against each other, Binghua had already moved him out of his own camp. Binghua can tolerate the huge accidental damage caused by the Hayden civilization during the war, but he does not like their retaliatory massacre afterwards, because it has no benefit except turning itself into a beast. The casual words in Binghua's mouth, combined with the cruel scenes in the video materials, made Ge Xiaolun and others feel uncomfortable. You should all know about Liang civilization's existence, right? Seeing the solemn expressions of Ge Xiaolun and others, Binghua simply increased the pressure again. I know, the teacher told us about it when we were studying at Super Seminary. The reason why the Dino civilization was mentioned was that it had a misunderstanding with the Liang civilization over a trivial matter, which ultimately led to the destruction of the Dino civilization. I didn't expect that guy Tokyo didn't choose to hide it from you, but I guess he wouldn't tell you the inside story. The destruction of the Dino civilization was naturally caused by the Nyo civilization itself, but the pride and arrogance of the Liang civilization also accounted for a large part. The sun god went to Nyoxing and Dexing to ask for an explanation for his son, but was repelled by the power of Kamigawa and the god of war Nyoxing. The sun god, who was dissatisfied, naturally did not want to retreat like this, so he detonated the sun in the Dino system, so that the two major god-making civilizations and the headquarters of the Super Seminary were destroyed. Among them, the Noxian god of war survived the star explosion that destroyed the Dino system, and broke into the Liang civilization alone to fight with the sun god outside the Liang star. The final result was that the Noxing god of war fell, and only half of the Liang star was left. Not long after, the sun god also collapsed due to his injuries. Binghua spoke in great detail, as if she had witnessed it, but it was almost the same. As the mediator between Liang and the Dino survivors, she went to investigate the whole story. Dear me, is the Nyosean god of war so powerful? Lu Chuang exclaimed that the teachers at the Super Theological Seminary were not willing to talk about the details of the destruction of Dino civilization at all. They just said that his super gene was very powerful. Ge Xiaolun's focus is different from Lu Chuang's. He focuses on Liang civilization because Brother Monkey once told them. More than 1,000 years ago, the Liang civilization once invaded China. In the end, it was frightened by the reputation of the Sky Sword King, the goddess, and also feared the fighting power of Sun Wukong, so it finally withdrew its troops. Now Dino's legacy, two of the three major anti-void god-making projects, are Ge Xiaolun and Lu Chuang. One of the purposes of Liang coming to China more than 1,000 years ago was the super genes in U2. But now, after nearly 10,000 years, the Liang civilization has regained its own main god, and it has recently begun to launch wars with foreign countries to expand the strength of the Liang civilization. Do you think they will leave the descendants of Dino alone in China? Binghua excluded the world of justice from his words and allowed Ge Xiaolun and others to imagine it in their minds. Goddess, we need time to make a decision. In the end, Ge Xiaolun and others still did not make a decision immediately, while Binghua waved his hand indifferently, and everyone returned to the Moon Palace again. After the Xiangbing Company and others left, the people who came to see them were the Dino survivors. Your Majesty the Goddess, we are here to say goodbye to you. It seems that you have made a decision, but how many of Tokyo's tribe are willing to leave with you? Tokyo looked a little bitter when he heard this. Binghua was not surprised by the decision of Tokyo, the leader of the Dino survivors, because since China chose to join the justice world, the influence of the Dino survivors on China has become smaller and smaller. Moreover, many Dino survivors have chosen to give up the mission of reviving Dino civilization because of their lives in China. If Tokyo does not make a decision before China is completely integrated into the world of justice, then only complete destruction awaits their Dino remnants. However, Tokyo was also very straightforward in his work. Although he wanted to take the Dino survivors out of China, he did not choose to take away anyone in the Xiangbing Company. Even his daughter Qiangwei stayed behind. They just backed up the super gene data from Ge Xiaolun and others, and planned to restart the god-making project in the future when the Dino civilization was almost rebuilt. As for the agreement made more than 1,000 years ago, it was unilaterally terminated by the Dino survivors because they no longer had the ability to cultivate the god-making project in China. As a beneficiary of the agreement, Binghua was naturally not stingy. After hearing that the Dino survivors wanted to leave China, they also provided a lot of resource support. On the other side, after Ge Xiaolun and others returned to China, they reported to the superiors the purpose and some details of Binghua's conversation with them. The top management of China made a decision quickly, talked to the members of the Xiangbing Company, and stated to them that China was now a part of the righteous world. The order of the goddess is everything. Since the goddess likes you so much, you agree to join the goddess's banner and serve the goddess well. So after going round and round, the Xiangbing company finally broke away from Shenzhou's command order. Binghua was naturally aware of some of Shenzhou's little thoughts. However, as time goes by, China will gradually realize that in a just world, just being clever will not work. If you want to obtain anything in other worlds, you need dedication and attitude. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 1038. Incorporated into the world of justice, the heroic company of the Divine Legion sequence has also received its own epic level strengthening. First of all, the resource restrictions that limit the growth of their divine bodies are gone. In a very short period of time, with sufficient resource supply, Ge Xiaolun and Lu Chuang fully demonstrated their divine body characteristics. Among them, Ge Xiaolun's invincible body and Lu Chuang's body of the god of war made other people in the Xiangbing company extremely envious. In addition to them, like Xianzhao, the German star spear, in order to make up for his lack of lethality, Justice World used the technology of making the Fan Shenjian to customize a Fan Shenjian for him. The weapons of others and the dark alloy armor on their bodies have been strengthened. For example, Kylan's god-killing sniper rifle has been modified by the Alal's weapons department. In addition to being able to shoot god-killing armor-piercing projectiles, it also supports firing some special ammunition from the elite legion of the Justice World. At the same time, the old model of god-killing armor-piercing projectiles left by Dino have also been strengthened and refurbished. And while the Xiangbing company was adapting to its new equipment and new strength, the Styx side also felt tired of the Pluto defense line. In addition to the ordinary affiliated civilization armies, some special beings from Styx also began to intervene in the battle, such as some of Karl's void engine experiments. Among them are strong beast warriors, unknown insect-like creatures, and irrational monsters. Under the attack of these monsters who can be called gods, the Styx Galaxy fleet finally began to move forward again, and the recovery speed of the Purifier Legion gradually began to fail to keep up with the speed of consumption. Binghua also felt that it was time to have a collision with Styx's army, so he asked Samilo to control the Purifier Legion to create a gap, allowing part of Styx's fleet to break in and let the armies of the Justice World warm up. We finally passed Pluto, and I thought we were going to be stuck there for the rest of our lives. A dowdy soldier piloting a space fighter was chatting with his colleagues in the communication. This is not because my god has sent out his warriors. Those robots that appear from nowhere are too troublesome. Even the warriors who have received the blessing of death cannot defeat them. Several adults I know have fallen into the hands of those robots. The dowdy fighter pilot on the other end of the communication side. Who says it's not, but I don't know if you've ever seen those things, those beings that kill through robot defenses, they're so long that they're really penetrating. I was glanced at by him once, and I couldn't move at that time. I felt like I was being targeted by some terrifying monster. Is it that scary? Faced with the indifferent attitude of his colleagues, the dowdy warrior immediately became anxious. Absolutely terrifying. I have never seen such a deadly creature. Those powerful mechanical warriors were like prey waiting to be slaughtered in front of him, torn into pieces by his sharp blade feet. At this moment, Dowdy on the other side of the communication suddenly shouted in horror. There's an ambush. Disperse. The next second, a roar came from the other end of the communication, followed by only vague noises. The gluttonous pilot lowered his head to check the fighter's scanning system and found that there was nothing abnormal around him. His heart suddenly went cold. So he raised his head and looked around through the fighter plane's window to look for traces of the enemy. All he could see were friendly fighter planes exploding constantly. With a group of targets, shooting is really stress-free. The aerospace fighter pilot of the Aerol's Aerospace Corps complained. Don't be careless. If you are shot down, you will become the laughing stock of the entire army. The captain of the air and space fighter formation said seriously in the communication, and piloted the air and space fighter to turn flexibly. Okay, the first wave of strikes has been completed, leave the rest to other brother troops. As soon as the words fell, this team had just completed its fixed-point strike mission and wiped out nearly 100 Doughty fighters before returning to the nearest Uranus base. The Uranus base is a giant orbital defense base built near Uranus to facilitate the supply of the front line. It is very busy at the moment. The main force of the aerospace fighter formation from Ilal's and China's newly formed Space Force is stationed here. In order to allow China to adapt to the complex and ever-changing air and space combat environment as soon as possible, Ilal's Air and Space Legion specially assigned a battle group to teach them step-by-step how to fight in the cosmic environment. In addition to the Chinese Space Force, the first and second teams of the Xiangbing Company also came to the Uranus defense line as a high-end force to guard against sneak attacks by some high-end combat power in sticks. Of course, the Xiangbing Company is only a defensive force on the surface. There are hundreds of high-level angels nearby who act as a covert defensive force to prevent sticks from sending small groups of troops to bypass the Uranus defense line and run further to the rear. But Binghua has left the Chaiwu star system at this moment. After these few months of war, Binghua has discovered that Karl has no special trump card. If there is, why don't you use it while you are here in the Chaiwu star system? Why don't you wait for yourself to open the door and use it? And Binghua discovered something very strange during this time. It seemed that Karl was not too concerned about the war in the Chaiwu star system, because Binghua didn't even see Karl's agents know. The command system of the entire Styx fleet is also relatively chaotic. Except for the beginning, the various affiliated civilizations of the Styx are fighting on their own. Binghua also discovered the fishiness after careful observation. It seemed that Karl wanted to drag his attention here. So Binghua immediately made a decision and planned to sneak into the Styx galaxy to explore the bottom. As for the defense of the Chaiwu star system, with the troops of the Justice World present, there would be no problems in the short term. So Binghua quietly left the Chaiwu star system with several two-winged god-level angels, and came to the vicinity of the Styx star system through the Stargate passage. In order to prevent being detected by the big clock, Binghua specially asked Ran and other angels to suppress their own dark energy fluctuations to a minimum, and also applied a layer of shielding algorithm. Although this cannot fool the precise scanning of the big clock, it is enough to fool the conventional wide area scanning. As long as Karl does not get the information, it should not be a problem to sneak into the vicinity of Death Song Academy. But what Binghua didn't expect was that she was attacked not long after she entered the Styx galaxy. With a ferocious roar, an insect-like body, combined with the purple void energy surging between the carapace and blade-like forelimbs, this is simply the perfect hunter. But at this moment, the hunter is being nailed to the asteroid by several sharp blades, but judging from the way it is struggling and twisting, its vitality is very tenacious. Queen, I have never seen this kind of creature, but judging from the energy fluctuations emanating from his body, it should be Karl's void creation. After the investigation, Ran ran to Binghua to report. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 1039. While Binghua was listening to Ran's report, purple energy particles began to fill the surrounding area at some unknown time, gradually gathering like mist to cover this small area of the universe. Seeing this, Binghua raised his hand to signal the angels to be alert, and at the same time carried out his king's sword. However, the weakest of the angels present were at the double wing level, so Binghua was not too worried about their safety. This is the first time I have encountered this kind of scene in the universe. Hizui's eyes moved left and right, observing the purple mist around him, while not forgetting to say something bad. Be careful. This energy is very similar to void energy. Maybe there is something unknown hidden in it. Ran said in a deep voice, the thunder sword in her hand flashed with lightning, and she was ready to attack. At this moment, the angels no longer care about hiding their whereabouts. It is better to be discovered by Karl, the god of death, than to lose their lives carelessly. Even Binghua thought so, and she was thinking about whether Karl did all this. Suddenly a shadow flashed across the purple mist, and the next moment a bolt of thunder and lightning struck over, directly scattering the purple mist in that area. Ran put down the thunder sword with some regret. Binghua looked around with a cold expression, and directly raised his left hand. The invisible force field spread, and the next moment the surrounding purple mist began to shrink, and was directly squeezed into a sphere floating on the side of Binghua. Without the purple energy particles hiding in the mist, the angels finally saw the originator of the mist. It was a creature with a pair of blade-like forelimbs, and its entire body seemed to be made of purple void energy. "Queen, what the hell is this?" Ran asked with a surprised voice. Binghua gently rubbed his chin with his fingers, opened his eyes of insight and began to scan the still struggling creature. As a result, after a few minutes, Binghua was stunned and did not find this kind of creature in the angels' database. It would be better to say that the angel civilization had never discovered the existence of this kind of creature. "I don't know, but no matter what kind of creature he is, just kill him." After Binghua finished speaking, he squeezed his left hand hard, and the force field that restrained the unknown creature began to squeeze violently toward the center. The unknown creature let out a cry that made all the angels uneasy, and was extinguished like a small flame. "Let's go to Death Song Academy." After Binghua finished speaking, he spread out his angel wings and no longer hid his energy fluctuations. He planned to directly fly at super light speed. Ran and Crane chased him. Seeing this, Elan's angels also spread out their wings to follow. In the next second, several streams of light streaked across the space of the Styx galaxy and quickly approached the direction of the new Death Song Academy. At the same time, the Chiwa star system, the Uranus defense line, and the orbital defense base were burning with fire. Just an hour ago, a Styx god relied on his special concealment technology to lead a small group of gods to sneak into the vicinity of Uranus. After discovering the orbital defense base established by the Justice World here, I plan to complete the location marking and then continue to sneak into China, intending to come to a center to bloom. Unexpectedly, they were detected by the scanning system as soon as they approached the orbital defense base, so this special team from Styx, fortunately, was determined to destroy the base first. Facing the attack of the Styx gods, the space-time shield of the orbital defense base lasted for more than 10 minutes before being declared broken. However, within these 10 minutes, enough logistics personnel had been transported inside the base to a safe place through the space conveyor. After the Styx gods entered the base, they were greeted by the fully armed Shenzhou Space Force, as well as a small number of the Aral's Defense Force and the fully prepared Xiangbing Company. Near the Neptune defense line, the Styx side launched another attack, putting pressure on the purification legions of the Neptune defense line so that they could not return to defense. "Take my axe!" Lu Chuang roared angrily and raised the battle axe in his hand high to strike down with all his strength. The crocodile god Sotan, who blocked the block, screamed and retreated continuously, knocking a deep dent into the solid alloy wall behind him. "Quick, protect Lord Thornton!" The two gluttonous mechanical warriors aimed their particle cannons at Lu Chuang and fired several particle beams. Lu Chuang resisted the bombardment of particle beams without dodging, and walked out of the rising energy smoke unscathed. "I am no longer the same as before. Your weapons don't hurt or itch me." When Lu Chuang spoke, he also made a universal gesture of contempt. The angry Dowdy warrior wanted to rush forward and hack this bastard to death immediately. "Get out of my way, don't stop me from eating meat." Thornton waved the big axe in his hand to drive away the gluttonous warriors. He stared at Lu Chuang with his scarlet eyes and opened his ferocious mouth. "I was careless just now, don't try to knock me down next. Your crocodile's breath is quite strong." I hope your skull is as hard as your breath. After Lu Chuang finished speaking, he strode forward. Thornton held two axes and slashed forward like a whirlwind, cutting the alloy walls along the way. Seeing that Sotan's attack was so powerful, Lu Chuang quickly stopped and jumped back, just in time to avoid the axe blade that passed by. With his quick eyesight and quick hands, he immediately struck down the tomahawk in his hand, but it hit the other Sotan's opponent. Put the big axe on it. With a bang, Lu Chuang and Thornton separated. The spreading kinetic energy shockwave blew the broken debris on the ground and rolled around. Enough. Come again. Lu Chuang became more and more excited as he fought. Before Thornton could regroup, he pressed forward and slashed with the double-edged battle axe in his hand. For a moment, Thornton could only parry. The Nyoxing War God gene in Lu Chuang's body is now fully activated. Although it is not as powerful as the first-generation Nyoxing War God, it is not much weaker. All he lacks now is combat experience and the application of his special divine body. But the power and defensive capabilities of the Nyoxing God of War gene itself are enough to suppress ordinary third-generation divine bodies. This is the special point of the God Creation Project. As long as there are super gene seeds and sufficient resource support, a war god can be cultivated in a very short period of time. After the galactic power GE Xiaolun super gene was fully revealed on the other side, his combat effectiveness was also extremely powerful, although he still could not drive his own anti-void algorithm to carry out targeted strikes. But just the super recovery ability of the invincible body, which is about to catch up with the holy body, is enough to make his opponent's head hurt, not to mention the anti-void ability that can be activated frequently to interfere with the flow of energy. What the hell are you? A ferocious-looking god of war with a Styx beast body who was stepped on the ground by GE Xiaolun asked. I'm not a ghost. You can call me the galactic power, or call me the galactic power of the just world. After GE Xiaolun finished speaking, he kicked away the Styx beast god of war who wanted to sneak attack him, and then uttered a few words in his mouth. Start the final ruling. As GE Xiaolun finished speaking, the dark alloy sword in his hand flew out and suddenly expanded into a shadow of a giant sword nearly 100 meters high, a dozen meters above the head of the Styx beast god of war. Under the horrified gaze of the Styx beast god of war, the phantom of the giant sword suddenly crashed down, directly annihilating it and the ground under his feet into scattered energy particles. Under the suppression of the energy level, the final decision no longer requires any calculation, and the reading does not exist, and it will be turned into ashes directly. However, after activating the final judgment, GE Xiaolun couldn't help but recall the scene of him sparring with the goddess when he first learned the final judgment. At that time, my final decision was imprisoned in mid-air by the goddess's force field lightly, and it could not fall down. In the end, it turned into ashes after she glanced at it. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 1040. Except for the wolf god Hus and the crocodile god Thornton, the two living brothers, the rest of the Styx gods are basically a bunch of crooked people. After breaking into the orbital defense base, they were killed by the Alal's people in the orbital base. Commander, it was broken up by internal structural features. The ferocious Thornton was provoked by Lu Chuang and lured away, while the wolf god Hus was trapped in an area by the god-killing operations of the Xiangbing Company. The rest of the brainless Styx gods were led in circles by a small number of eternal guards using the base's well-connected passages. GE Xiaolun, the power of the galaxy, was quickly hunting down the lone Styx gods. In the face of the final decision, no matter what the Styx gods did, it was useless, and the only outcome was death. On the periphery of the orbital defense base, some high-level angels have moved closer to guard against Styx's reinforcements and to prevent the Styx gods who entered the orbital base from escaping. Boom! A circle of blazing energy spread out, and Thornton screamed again and flew backwards, crashing through an alloy wall and landing in the area where the wolf god Hus was. Seeing that his brother was in such a mess, Hus asked with some minor wounds. What's going on with you? Ouch. It hurts me so much. Thornton screamed in pain several times on the ground. When he heard Hus's cry, he quickly got up from the ground and pointed at the hole he had made. There's a tough guy there, let's go hum him together. Hearing this, Husai turned his attention. Not far away, Rui Mengmeng, Yaoan, Zhao Xian and others were also nervously guarding Qiangwei and Kailan behind them. At this moment, in the hole knocked out by Thornton, Lu Chuang walked out with traces of fire like dark energy flames escaping from his body. His face was ferocious, and his eyes filled with fanatical fighting spirit swept across the crowd, and finally landed on Thornton. Didn't you say you wanted to cut my head open? Why did you suddenly run away while you were being beaten? Lu Chuang pointed at Thornton and said contemptuously, which made Thornton almost jump out of his feet. Energy burning. Before Thornton could respond to Lu Chuang's words, Husai took the lead to break the stalemate, and purple energy flames exploded in an instant, covering the entire floor of the room. Lu Chuang suddenly felt the pain of being burned by the flames, but soon the purple flames ignited on his body were eliminated by the dark energy erupting from his body. Lu Chuang could ignore Husai's energy burning, but others present could not. Yaoan was better, but Zhao Xian, who was avoiding the attack, was in dire straits. Under the burning flames of purple energy, Xian Zhao could not only feel the pain of being burned by flames, but the dark energy in his body was also rapidly consumed like running water. Soon Xian Zhao retreated from the high-speed movement, as if he had been fighting for several days in a row, and was so weak that he almost couldn't stand up. Seeing this, Qiangwei quickly moved Xian Zhao to Kailan's vicinity, which was some distance away from the battlefield and was relatively safe for the time being. Brother, burn it hard for me. It's best to burn him to death directly. This way it will taste better. Thornton shouted excitedly while slapping the purple flames attached to his body. Hus's head hurt when he heard this. He kicked Thornton in dissatisfaction and scolded. There should be a limit to your stupidity. The other party is not so easy to dismiss, and some of the energy reactions among the gods who came with us have disappeared. It seems that besides the Snyoxing god of war, there should be other beings in the space who can compete with us. Thornton didn't pay attention to the analysis of his elder brother Hus. Now he just wanted to cut into pieces Lu Chuang, the guy who was chasing him. Seeing Lu Chuang being suppressed, Suo Dun lowered his body and shouted, "The hunting has begun." After he finished speaking, he ignored Hus's dissuasion and rushed straight towards Lu Chuang like a drill bit shooting out. But the next moment, Thornton flew back from the purple flames at a faster speed, accompanied by Lu Chuang's disdainful words. This grandson still wants to sneak up on me, let's see if I don't chop your head into pieces. The burning purple energy flame was split in two by the battle axe in Lu Chuang's hand. Naturally, Husai couldn't just watch Lu Chuang's battle axe fall on his brother, so he strode forward and swung the axe staff in his hand. Boom! A shockwave arose from the location where Lu Chuang and Hus weapons collided, sending the purple flames burning on the ground flying in all directions. Lu Chuang roared angrily and pressed down hard. The huge force directly pushed the tall Husai back a step. The solid alloy ground under their feet was also trampled into several deep footprints. Seeing that he could not outpower the dog-headed monster in front of him, Lu Chuang turned his attack and kicked Hus on the calf. Hus was immediately kicked to one knee, and Lu Chuang took the opportunity to turn around and spin his double-edged battle axe in the air, then struck Hus on the head. Death to me! A circle of terrifying dark energy surged around, and the double-edged battle axe imitating the black cut in Lu Chuang's hand was directly embedded into Hus's head, almost splitting his dog's head in half. If it were really a black cut, Hus might have been split into two parts along with his own body at this moment. Before Lu Chuang could finish his last strike, Thornton rushed up and knocked him away, dragging Hus who was already unconscious and retreating sharply. Are you okay? Although I despise you for being ugly, you must not die. If you die, I won't be able to defeat him. Kill him while he's sick. Yaoan takes action. Xin Zhao weakly shouted at Yaoan, and Yaoan immediately raised his halberd and stabbed Hus in Sotan's arms. Thornton felt danger and looked up when he saw a pitch-black halberd coming towards him. He raised the axe in his hand and deflected Yaoan's attack aside. I'm talking to my brother, why are you joining in the fun, you idiot? Come on, get out of here. Hus also recovered at this time and spoke weakly. Although the part of his skull that was split open made his face look extremely ferocious at the moment, it did not make him completely lose his ability to fight. As the third-generation peak beast body war god, his target was the conventional third-generation god. Although his head was split open by Lu Chuang and he was seriously injured, he could not die in a short time. But Husi already felt that he might not be able to leave today, because Lu Chuang had already approached again. When it comes to his elder brother, Thornton is no fool. Seeing that there are enemies all around him, even with his brain he knows that their brother is already trapped in a tight siege. Hus raised his hand and used the energy burning to show off its power again. This time, unlike the previous purple energy flame, it actually began to burn the alloy ground and emit blazing high temperatures. Yaoan was immediately blocked. Seeing this, Kylan turned her gun and shot a god-killing armor-piercing bullet towards Thornton's eyes. Thornton cried out in pain from the beating, quickly covered his injured left eye, and began to look around for his attacker. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 1041. Kylan frowned slightly when she saw that the god-killing armor-piercing bullets had no good effect. She pulled out the magazine and took out a new magazine with a special mark on it from her waist. As Kylan fired again, a special bullet suddenly hit Thornton's body, exploding directly and sputtering out a gorgeous flower of ultra-high temperature plasma, which made Thornton jump to the point of being so hot. Then several more bullets hit Thornton again, beating him so hard that he covered the burned area and looked for cover to hide. But as a bullet hit Thornton again, this time it was no longer ultra-high temperature plasma that exploded, but a freezing bomb that suddenly dropped the air temperature. Thornton immediately turned into a lifelike ice sculpture. I let you jump, you jump for me again and see. Kylan murmured, obviously dissatisfied with her performance in the battle against the gods of Styx. But Kylan also knew that how much strength she could exert mainly depended on the weapons in her hands. This time her opponent was either the beast-like god of war of the Styx, or some unknown creatures that she didn't know how to describe. The god-killing armor-piercing bullets in her hand could only scratch the itch of these enemies. Kylan urgently needed a weapon that could cause fatal damage to gods, because she felt that she could no longer keep up with the heroes. On the other side, Lu Chuang faced Husi who was blocking him, and he swung his axe and chopped him down without mercy. Anyone who stands in my way will die. Hus raised his axe and staff and fought with Lu Chuang again, but this time he could no longer compete with Lu Chuang, who became more and more courageous as he fought. After only fighting for a few times, he was knocked away due to the lack of weapons. Lu Chuang swung the tomahawk in his hand, and the end of the axe handle hit Hus's jaw hard, causing his head to tilt back. Lu Chuang took the opportunity to drive all the dark energy that could be mobilized in his body into the battle axe in his hand, causing it to burst out with a fiery glow, and hit the wound on Hus's head from top to bottom. This time was different from before. Before, Lu Chuang relied solely on his own strength and the god-killing sharpness of the battle axe in his hand to break through the defense of Hus' peak beast body. This time, Lu Chuang used a fully charged axe, splitting Hus's head and the smaller half of his body in half. Liquid energy like blood splashed everywhere. Such a brutal scene gave everyone in the Xiangbing company present a new understanding of Lu Chuang's power, because the one he killed was not a cat or a dog, but a peak beast body war god comparable to the third generation of gods. However, after swinging this axe, the glow of dark energy escaping from Lu Chuang's body also dimmed visibly to the naked eye. It was obvious that he had consumed too much, and he could no longer strike the blow just now in a short time. At this moment, the closed metal door suddenly opened, and the corpse of a tall and ferocious-looking creature flew upside down into the room, and then a figure that was extremely familiar to everyone stepped in. "Everyone is here. I have solved everything over there. How is the situation here?" Lu Chuang directly held his battle axe and sat on Husa's body, panting heavily and pointing at Thornton, who had just broken through the ice. "This is the only one left who can still breathe, so I leave it to you." "Master Chuang, you look very tired." Ge Xiaolun joked, pulling out the dark alloy sword hanging behind his back with constant movements, sprinting to Thornton's side, and slashed him with the sword. "Nonsense, try carving out a god of war with a peak beast body." Lu Chuang looked at Ge Xiaolun, who was confronting Thornton, and shouted dissatisfied. Then Lu Chuang, who had calmed down a little, also rushed forward and started to involve him. Thornton is indeed a tough guy. Although he was beaten by Lu Chuang before and cried for his father, but now that he saw his eldest brother died under Lu Chuang's axe, he attacked Lu Chuang regardless. "Master Chuang, hold him back for a while, and I'll finish him off with a big one. Don't worry. As long as I don't fall, he won't even think about getting close to you." Lu Chuang's words, like his figure, can give others a huge sense of security. Ge Xiaolun stared at his back and chose to believe in his comrade. "Initiate the final ruling, target the third-generation peak beast body of Styx, and apply for access to the semi-low database." After a few seconds, Ge Xiaolun's ears finally heard the sound of successful connection, and then the data about the third-generation peak beast body of Styx was imported into the final decision. The calculation of the final ruling also jumped to 90% in an instant, saving a lot of calculation time. Otherwise, just by Ge Xiaolun himself, without supercomputing, it would take at least more than half an hour to solve Thornton's peak beast body. As the final ruling was completed, Ge Xiaolun shouted at Lu Chuang, who was entangled with Thornton, and told him to get away. Lu Chuang looked up and saw the shadow of a huge sword that had penetrated the alloy roof floating above him and Thornton. He quickly kicked Thornton away and threw himself to one side. Ge Xiaolun saw the right moment and activated the final judgment. The phantom of the giant sword suddenly fell and hit Thornton, who was still trying to escape, wiping him out along with an area of several meters in radius. After doing all this, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The rest were just some gluttonous soldiers, and they could be dealt with by relying on the Eternal Guards. It can be said that this time the Styx side's infiltration operation cost them both their wives and their troops. Not only did they not achieve any results, they also included several Styx war gods and a group of elite troops. When the war on Uranus came to an end, after several days of flying, Binghua and his group of angels finally arrived at the new Death Song Academy. However, what surprised Binghua was that their group of angels did not encounter any attack or obstruction, and the Death Song Academy also became tattered, as if it had been attacked. Before Binghua could wait too long, a projection appeared not far in front of Binghua, and it was none other than the god of death, Karl. "Hey, did you go somewhere to fight, or did you lose the fight?" Binghua was a little happy to see Karl's appearance, because Karl's image at this moment could not be said to be good, and he completely lost the calmness of the last time he met. "Your Excellency, King Tianjian, there is just a slight change in the experiment, and it is not worth paying attention to." Karl looked calm on the surface, but in fact he was a little nervous. Shouldn't Binghua be dragged to the Chaiwa star system? How could he suddenly go to the Styx star system? Binghua saw Karl's forced composure at a glance, and felt a little strange. After she and Ran were attacked by unknown creatures, they did not continue to hide the traces of their group. Why did Karl look like he just knew she came to Styx? Same. At this moment, a violent explosion suddenly occurred in an area of Styx Academy, and a figure that Binghua was very familiar with flew out of it. It was none other than Karl's loyal lackey, the agent Snow. Also appearing at the same time was an unusually large monster that looked exactly like the strange creature Binghua had seen before. It broke open the outer wall of the Death Song Academy and spat out radiating purple energy jets in Snow's direction. Your place is really lively. It seems that I came at the right time, don't you think? Not paying attention to Karl's disgusted expression, Binghua said with a chuckle. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 1042. Binghua did not continue to pay attention to Karl and directly ordered. Ran, go and deal with Snow. He is good at space wormholes. Don't let him escape. Queen, please don't worry, he can't escape. After Ran finished speaking, he rushed straight towards Snow, who had just escaped from the breath of an unknown creature. Before he could get close to the thunder sword in his hand, dazzling lightning began to surge. Haikawi, Alan, you come with me into the Death Song Academy, and we'll go and find Karl. Binghua didn't care about Karl's intentions at all and gave the order directly in front of him. Your Excellency, King of Heavenly Sword, you are too rude. Can't we talk between us? Facing Karl's words, Binghua, who was flying towards the gate of Death Song Academy, sneered. Karl, not everything can be discussed, I have already given you a chance. Now that you have made your choice, don't regret it now. As he finished speaking, Binghua stretched out his hand toward the door of Death Song Academy and gave it a virtual squeeze. The huge door, which symbolized the majesty of Death Song Academy, seemed to be grasped by a big hand and was crushed to pieces, revealing the passage leading to the interior. Then Binghua and his three angels rushed directly into the Death Song Academy and landed in the slightly gloomy passage. Even the place where he lives is so lifeless, no wonder he is called the God of Death. Hizui looked at the decoration style around him, uttered a curse word, and at the same time carried out his weapons. This is just the honorific title given to Karl by the intelligent life of Styx for his love of studying and observing death, but as time went by, he himself began to call himself the God of Death. Elan was more vigilant, the dark energy in his body was already active, and he was ready to launch a thunderous strike at any time. I don't care if he is a god of death or an immortal god. Find his location and kill him if you can. If you can't kill him, I will catch him and lock him up. Binghua walked in the front, and when he approached a closed door, the door was suddenly smashed from the inside, and a nearly 3-meter tall beast covered in wavy luminous stripes pounced. But just when it was less than 1 meter away from the ice flower, the beast and the surrounding stones were all suspended in mid-air, unable to move at all. It's this kind of creature again. It seems that Karl is doing some dangerous research. Although it was imprisoned by Binghua's force field, this creature was very tenacious. At the same time, the void energy radiating from his body was also very troublesome and was slowly eroding the force field that imprisoned it. At this moment, a figure wearing a wide-brimmed hat suddenly appeared from the shadows about 10 meters away, waving his hand and throwing out several flying knives trailing purple trails. With the energy in his body already activated, Elan waved the sword of judgment in his hand, and a slashing wave burning with hot energy flames swallowed up the incoming flying blade, and cut towards the man with unabated force. The energy intensity is really terrifying. Are all angels as powerful as you? The slightly feminine voice came from the mouth of the man wearing a wide-brimmed hat, and he sounded carefree. Who are you to sneak up and attack the goddess in secret? Elan took a few steps forward and asked with a cold face, and at the same time, dark energy flames began to burn on his body. Seeing such a scene, the feminine man's body, which was still relaxed, tensed up in an instant. Elan's appearance was really too scary. Because angels who can transform such majestic dark energy must not be unknown people, at least they are second-generation gods among angels. Alan, don't compete with me. I think he is quite suitable for me. Just when Elan was about to fire a few rounds of flame bombardment to say hello, Chui stretched out his hand to stop her. Elan understood the meaning of Zui in a flash of thought. According to the large creatures that appeared before, it can be seen that Karl and some of his lackeys are not the only ones in Death Song Academy. Chui is not good at large-scale destructive algorithms, but he is very good at dealing with enemies of the same shape. There is nothing wrong with choosing this feminine man. Then I'll leave it to you. I hope you won't cry in the communication and beg me to save you. The dark energy flames on Elan's body began to gradually weaken until they disappeared, but he did not forget what he said. That's impossible. Look at me taking him down easily. Chui raised the broad-bladed heavy sword in his hand, pointed it at the effeminate man, and chuckled. Next, my sister will accompany you to have some fun. I hope you don't die too soon. Binghua shook her head slightly when she saw this. She knew that Chui had been suppressed in the world of justice these years, where except for her colleagues, she could hardly meet any opponents who could rival her. Although the feminine man in front of him does not seem to have much aura, according to the scan of the Eye of Insight, he possesses the third-generation divine body of Styx. In order to prevent being disturbed by Karl when he faced him later, Zui took the initiative to take on the task of annihilating the god of Styx. This was a tacit understanding between Binghua and these older generation angels, and there was no need to discuss any battle plan in advance. In fact, in Binghua's opinion, there was no need to be so troublesome at all. She was confident that even if Karl's lackeys came along, they would not pose any threat to her. Seeing that Zui planned to stay, Binghua just nodded lightly to tell her to be careful, and then he and Ailan crossed over the unknown beast imprisoned in mid-air, and then heard the dislocation and twisting of flesh and bones. After passing through the long passage and the main hall that appeared at intervals, Binghua was not anxious at all. She could feel where Karl was. Moreover, I didn't take a closer look at the place last time I came to Death Song Academy. It's just a good time to take a closer look on the way now when I'm not in a hurry, because maybe this place will become her territory soon. At the same time, in the area that only Hiawa and Karl can sense, Samilo is constantly colliding with the big clock to gain control of this area. Tianjian is assisting from the side. After all, he is just a computing cloud. In terms of computing power, it cannot compare with the large clock of the celestial computer. Generally speaking, although Samilo has gained some control over the star field, it is an away game after all, and there has been no progress for some time after slightly suppressing some of the computing power of the big clock. But as Binghua gets closer to Karl's position in the Eye of Insight, more unknown creatures are encountered along the way. Although these creatures are strange, the energy intensity contained in their bodies is not high. Even an ordinary angel warrior can easily kill them. But what is strange to Binghua is that these creatures have different shapes and almost none of the same species. Goddess, where do you think these creatures come from? I don't feel like these creatures are from this universe. This is the third time Ailan has asked a question. Binghua frowned. It seems that Karl's research on the void seems to have had an accident. These are probably the so-called void creatures, but they are too weak. Binghua commented that she really didn't feel any threat to the void creature that she could easily crush to death. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 1043. Just as Binghua and Ailan were communicating about the issue of void creatures, there was a sudden movement in the passage ahead, and then a dense number of creatures the size of a human head, with an ominous purple light shining all over their bodies and shaped like swimming fish, rushed over quickly. This is the first time I've seen a fish that can swim in the air. Ailan exclaimed. Binghua on the side raised his hand and clenched his fingers at the incoming void fish. At the same time, the passage in front suddenly began to shrink towards the middle. Seeing this, the fish swimming in the void let out ear-piercing screams, but in the end they were squeezed and wrapped by the narrowed passage, and no one could rush out. Although the passage ahead was blocked by Binghua and Elan were not fragile mortals. They flew directly through the vacuum of space at the break and landed in the hall dozens of meters away. This place is different from before. There are some mechanical warriors on the ground with white paint and no racial characteristics. The cause of their death is the holes in their bodies. Judging from the size, it seems to be caused by the void fish just now. Even the mechanical void warriors created by Carl can be killed. It seems that the void creatures are not as harmless as they seem. Be careful for a while and try not to be hit by the attacks of void creatures. After Binghua glanced at it, she reminded Elan that after all, she had not studied this kind of creature, but judging from the intensity of the void energy contained in its body and the corpses of mechanical warriors on the ground, its lethality was not weak. Then Binghua and Elan no longer encountered void creatures. All they encountered were the corroded ground and the mutilated body of the Styx mechanical warrior. When Binghua passed through an open door and entered a main hall that was larger than the several halls she passed before, she saw Carl. "I'm a little surprised that you didn't run away." Carl sat quietly behind the desk in the hall, like a courtier greeting the arrival of the queen. "This is my residence, everything I have is here, where can I escape?" Carl stood up from his seat and walked around the table to face Binghua, his tone still neither humble nor condescending. "That's really good. I'll just destroy you and your research data together. Then I will send troops to garrison the Styx galaxy. This time I'll see how you rebuild the Death Song Academy." Binghua said with a smile, but the meaning contained in his words suddenly made the atmosphere at the scene freeze. "Your Excellency, King of Heavenly Sword, to be honest, I really don't want to be your enemy, but you have repeatedly jumped out to hinder my research." Carl stretched out his hand and a metal-covered book fell into his hands, and his tone became serious. "Your tone has become much louder. Could it be that those so-called void creatures gave you confidence?" The angel wings spread out behind Binghua, and then silver metal clung to them. The original white angel wings instantly turned into silver wings that reflected the cold light. "No, the appearance of void creatures is just an accident. What I have prepared for you is a special void engine specially developed and produced to target angels." As soon as Carl finished speaking, the metal-covered book in his hand opened automatically, and a disc-shaped projection appeared in the void, with tiny Kamigawa characters constantly beating on it. "An angel supergene has been detected, the target is a sacred body, and absolute suppression cannot be carried out." It did not go beyond Carl's expectations. Binghua also had the same divine body as Kesha, so he immediately adjusted the engine formula and changed the absolute suppression to partial suppression. In an instant, a translucent energy shock spread out, covering the entire universe. Elan groaned and took a step back. She felt that the output of her genetic engine had dropped by about 30%. Binghua on the side just frowned slightly, raised his hand and clenched his fist in one breath. The entire hall trembled for an instant, and then the walls shattered, rushing towards Carl's position and squeezing each other crazily. The next moment, the purple energy exploded in an instant, turning all the building debris wrapped in Carl into fly ash and dissipating, revealing the unscathed Carl inside. Binghua was not surprised when he saw this. The opponent's phantom body was extremely difficult to kill and there was almost no way to kill it, but he had to give it a try, right? The secondary biological engine unfolded in an instant, and the secondary biological energy immediately dispersed the void energy that had penetrated Binghua's body, and built a firewall. Binghua saw that Elan looked a little strange. He opened his 5 fingers and rushed into his body with biological energy, which also removed the suppression of the void engine. Carl, who was not far away, felt his heart sink when he saw this. Ever since he saw Kesha's secondary biological engine in the Battle of Godfall, Carl knew that the absolute leading position of void energy had been broken. Now Binghua has easily erased the concept rewriting of the void engine as proof, and the other party also has the support of the celestial computer. Forcibly driving the void engine will not have much effect, but Carl will not surrender. Anyway, his phantom body cannot be destroyed. In this case, just give up defense and attack with all your strength. How about it? Are you particularly surprised? Your so-called void is not as powerful as you said. Didn't the angel still find a way to deal with it? Binghua laughed, and at the same time his hands were not idle. The secondary biological engine launched an all-out analysis of Carl and quickly found a targeted attack method. Void is not as shallow as you think. You will soon realize how powerful it is. Carl did not give up and increase the output of the void engine, but the firewall built by the secondary biological engine, which had already understood the strike mode of the void engine, was not so easy to break. Seeing this, Binghua directly ignored the void engine's attack. He raised his hand and a mimic star condensed and shot towards Carl. But before the ball containing terrifying energy could touch his target, the concept of the void engine was rewritten. Down, he quickly became incapacitated and turned into nothingness. Binghua was not surprised by this, because this was not the first time that mimic star technology was used in front of Carl, and it was normal for it to be solved. But Binghua is actually very relaxed now. Even if Carl has an extremely powerful void engine, his combat effectiveness is actually just that. Before there was no secondary biological engine, it might have been troublesome to face the void engine ice flower, but with the concept rewriting and repairability of the secondary biological heart, it can be said that half of the void engine's aggressiveness was abolished. In addition, Carl was just a weak scholar, and it was impossible for him to rush up and engage in hand-to-hand combat with him. Therefore, Binghua had been thinking about how to kill or capture the opponent. At this moment, Alan on the side moved. Alan hated the god of death Carl who planned to kill Queen Kesha. Seeing that he was competing with Binghua for computing power, she took action directly, hoping to distract some of Carl's attention. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 1044. The surging dark energy gathered on the sword of judgment in Elan's hand, turning into a fiery slash as high as a person and flying out. Carl's eyes turned slightly, and just as he was about to raise his hand to deal with the energy slash, a bolt of lightning flashed through the void, and ice blossoms appeared behind him. Everything along the way was turned into charcoal, leaving only a trace. The silk is cooling firelight. Carl looked down at his body. An incision that bisected it was constantly consuming his phantom body and consuming his energy. Carl decisively abandoned the injured part of his body, and the remaining body floated aside to reassemble and recover as before. Such a strong recovery power did not surprise Binghua. The last time he and Carl fought, he completely destroyed the opponent. But after a few seconds, the opponent still appeared unscathed, and it had no effect at all. This is the most troublesome part of the phantom body. Alan's attack arrived as soon as Carl returned to his original state. Carl's figure flashed and the space shifted to a position far away from Binghua and Alan. A corner of the hall was cut open by the slash, and the air pressure inside and outside was instantly unbalanced. Some books and small objects in the room were quickly sucked out. Binghua and Alan lowered their bodies slightly to prevent being sucked out, while Carl was not affected at all because he had no physical body. However, Binghua has confirmed that the decomposition program constructed by the sub-biological engine can quickly destroy Carl's phantom body. Although it cannot prevent its recovery, Binghua believes that the number of times Carl's phantom body can be restored is definitely not unlimited. Because even if void energy can ignore the law of energy conservation to a certain extent, driving it itself requires energy. After realizing that his own force field-driven calculations were no longer enough to cover and keep up with Carl's spatial transfer, Binghua simply moved out the Titan's grip and the neutron blade, which had a sword that was much slimmer than the flame sword. Change, cutting type. After completing these operations, Ice Flower directly uses the secondary biological engine to redefine the space with a radius of thousands of kilometers with itself as the center, change the spatial medium, and make all space-time calculation formulas lose their effect. Carl naturally discovered the change in the surrounding space medium, and two solutions flashed in his mind. The first set of solutions is to reanalyze the spatial medium and reconstruct the spatial transfer algorithm. The second plan is to use the function of rewriting the void engine concept to restore the space medium to its previous state. Carl immediately chose the second plan because it was faster and more convenient. "I want to change it back," dreaming. Binghua spoke out, and at the same time, the secondary biological engine was fully deployed. For a time, the energy emitted by Binghua and Carl's engine formed two powerful energy fields in this space. They kept colliding and squeezing each other, causing the entire space to tremble slightly. For a while, Binghua's energy field gained the upper hand, and for a while, Carl's energy field gained the upper hand. Ran and Snow, who were fighting near the collision point of their energy fields, Hizui, Alan and others all activated the dark energy in their bodies to resist the incoming energy fluctuations. At this moment, Alan, Ran, and Hizui were all shocked by the power of Binghua and Carl. And this is the ceiling of the known universe. The king level does not mean that having a third or fourth generation divine body is the king level. The minimum standard for king level is to have your own dark plane computing cloud or celestial level computer. As long as there is this kind of super engineering assistance, the energy that the super warrior can control will be incredibly powerful. After more than 10 seconds of confrontation, the computing power competition between Binghua and Carl failed to determine a winner. However, Death Song Academy could no longer withstand the collision of energy fields and was already showing signs of disintegration. Seeing that he could not suppress Binghua Carl, he became anxious. He no longer worried about the stability of the Styx galaxy and began to relax the energy extraction restrictions of the big clock. For a time, the light of stars in countless planetary systems in the Styx galaxy began to gradually dim. Binghua's brows furrowed slightly. She felt the pressure. The computing power of the big clock was increasing, and Samilo's computing power coverage was slowly being squeezed out of the star field. "It seems that you have started running the big clock at full power. Aren't you afraid of sucking up all the stars in the Styx?" Facing Binghua's question, Carl answered calmly while operating the big clock. "This kind of question makes no sense, there are so many stars in the universe. Even if all the stars in Styx were to go out, I would only need to change places to resume my research." Binghua made a sound of displeasure. He didn't expect Carl to be so straightforward, but this was not the way to go. After all, Samilo's purification host was too far away from here, and his computing power had no advantage at all. However, in the dark, Binghua ordered Tianjian, who was assisting him, to scan the entire Styx galaxy for abnormal stars while the big clock was unable to shield the Styx galaxy, and mark them to create a separate star map. Carl didn't know at this moment that his behavior of running the big clock at full power had exposed the tentacles that connected the big clock to the stars of the known universe. Seeing that Binghua seemed unable to hold on any longer, Carl felt a touch of joy in his heart. This time, he finally surpassed the King of Heavenly Sword. The originally altered space medium was restored, and Carl planned to use space transfer to send the troublesome guy Binghua to the interior of the nearest star. This was a trap he had prepared long ago. Seeing that the computing power was no match, Binghua decisively gave up the fight for the control of computing power in this star field. Before Carl could recover, the energy field emitted by Titan's grip solidified suddenly. Although Carl is in the state of a disembodied mental energy body, he can be captured by the force field. This is something that has been confirmed by Binghua's destruction of the Death Song Academy last time. Therefore, Carl was directly grabbed by Binghua's force field and thrown to the nearest planet. Then Binghua spread out a force field again to cover the entire Death Song Academy and threw it towards Carl. Carl wanted to break free from the shackles of the force field and continued to use void energy to decompose and destroy it, but the recovery speed of the force field was extremely fast, causing Carl to be trapped by the force field and fall directly from the planet to the surface. Carl's body was directly smashed into energy particles, but it quickly returned to its original state, but even so, Carl was still frightened. But before he could regain his inner peace, he was covered by a shadow, and the Death Song Academy, which was as big as a city, crashed onto the surface of the planet with a rumble. Even after suffering such a heavy blow, the main body of the Death Song Academy was not broken, which shows that when Carl established the Death Song Academy, he built it according to the standards of a fortress. But the fortress characteristics of Death Song Academy have not played its due role. At present, apart from ensuring that it is stronger than ordinary buildings, it has no other use. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifen Si Wang. Chapter 1045. Before Death Song Academy was covered by Binghua's force field, Hizui and Ai Lan flew out through the gap in the academy. Therefore, when the Death Song Academy crashed into the surface of the planet, it did not affect our own side. Instead, a giant void creature failed to escape. It was thrown so hard that it lay dying in the pit, with smoke-like void energy constantly escaping from its body. But at this moment, no one is paying attention to the so-called void creatures. Their focus is on the ice flower high in the sky and Carl standing on the surface. Binghua made no secret of the intensity of his dark energy at this moment. The majestic dark energy covered the entire planet below like radiation, rivaling Carl's void energy field. Fortunately, the lowest level of people present were third-generation gods, otherwise ordinary super warriors would probably be affected in their actions when faced with such powerful dark energy radiation. Seeing that Carl had no intention of taking action first, Binghua didn't intend to wait any longer, and raised his hand to connect the space behind him with his weapons arsenal. The tips of dozens of destruction swords filled with simulated stars emerged from the sword grids, and then turned into blazing orange streams of light and shot toward Carl's position. Carl felt the terrifying energy contained within the destruction sword. He quickly turned the pages of the metal-covered book in his hand, and a complex driving formula composed of Kamigawa characters appeared and was introduced into the disc-shaped void engine. The next moment, the space between Carl and Binghua seemed to be stretched infinitely. It was obvious that the destruction sword had not stopped flying, but it was unable to cross the distance of only a few thousand meters. Seeing this, Binghua simply detonated the destruction sword, and heard a dazzling light coming from the sky. Several large fireballs like stars appeared in the space where the planet was very close. It's another trick about time and space. It seems that during the time you were working with Liang Bing, you also learned a bit of her skills. Carl did not deny Binghua's words. Liang Bing's obsession with space is far greater than my obsession with void. When discussing some matters, it is inevitable to have some discussions on time and space. And it just so happens that some things she can't do, I can easily do with the big clock. Carl said calmly, while the metal-covered book in his hand began to turn pages forward, and new formulas were imported. In an instant, the void energy was shaped into an arrow shape of more than 10 meters in front of Carl, and quickly rushed towards the ice in the sky. But halfway through the flight, Binghua waved his hand and was slapped aside by the force field. Seeing this, Carl sighed silently in his heart. He had studied many existences. Even after being suppressed by the silver wings as strong as Holy Kesha, a certain weakness of his was exposed because he was unable to maintain his strength. But Binghua is different. The force field control that integrates offense and defense makes it impossible to start. Even if it is as powerful as void energy, it needs to be in contact with the target if it wants to be effective. However, the characteristics of the energy field allow Binghua to effect attacks composed of void energy with the least energy consumption. Now that Binghua also has the concept modification of Angel's secondary biological engine to crack the void engine, Carl discovered that even if he has the assistance of a large clock, he can only use time and space methods to cause some trouble to Binghua. Binghua was thinking about how to restrict Carl's movements, and then used stagnation rays to freeze the space where he was. Although this would not kill Carl, in the frozen time and space, Binghua did not believe that Carl could still rely on his phantom body to move. Both sides are making their own plans, but it is obvious that as time goes by, Carl's means are about to be exhausted. A rift in space that led nowhere appeared next to Binghua, but it was immediately interrupted by the space-time disrupting sword that Binghua stretched out his hand to carry out and disappeared. This was not the first time. Binghua had already taken precautions, and after several attempts, Carl found that trying to use space rifts to banish Binghua didn't work at all. After being attacked, Binghua fought back as usual. As the force field spread to cover the surface, Binghua's thoughts moved. The ground with a radius of more than 10 kilometers was forcibly lifted, closed with Carl as the center, and turned into a majestic mountain with a height of more than 10 kilometers, sealing him inside. At the same time, Binghua began to import the stasis force field algorithm into the neutron blade cutting weapon engine in his hand, preparing to find an opportunity to use some cool tricks to give Carl a shot. Although the giant peak on the ground was majestic, it still could not seal Carl. A palm-sized space-time singularity crazily devoured all surrounding matter, and the giant peak collapsed in an instant. Binghua immediately knew what this thing was. It was the thing that Huaya used to destroy his own clone, so he must not let it take shape. Binghua's body suddenly turned into countless light particles, and the next moment they appeared on Carl's side. The neutron blade in his hand cut through the singularity of time and space in a sweeping motion. The ultra-strong gravitational waves carried by the neutron blade itself instantly destroyed the unformed mimetic black hole. Caught you. Carl has been waiting for Binghua to be close enough to him, so close that it is inconvenient to use force field control. In this way, he has come to his own domain, and the void energy can take effect. In an instant, the void energy quickly began to gather in front of Carl, but who knew that after Binghua slashed the singularity of time and space with a sword, his left hand equipped with the Titan's hand armor quietly poked out. The next moment, the void energy core that had just been condensed was caught by the Titan's grip, and then a dazzling glow lit up. The next moment, a burst of orange and purple energy shocks spread out. Binghua was blown upside down and turned into sacred atoms again in mid-air, and completed the aggregation on the ground. Carl on the other side was also feeling uncomfortable. Not only did his plan to distance himself from Binghua fail, half of his body was also blown away, so he could only recover. And at the moment when Carl regained his phantom body, Binghua's cold face finally showed a faint smile. The force field that was quietly spreading around suddenly solidified in the next moment, and everything else, including the floating dust, was imprisoned by the force field. In particular, Carl, who was the target, was given special care. His half-recovered wounds were solidified by the force field, and he was still unable to recover. It's useless. Even if the phantom body's injuries cannot be recovered, it will not be able to cause harm to me, because I have long lost the concept of injury. There is no way for you to destroy me. Carl's voice sounded in the public channel, but this did not make Binghua stop his actions. Really, what about this one? Binghua raised the neutron war blade, and while answering Carl's words, he fired a translucent energy jet. The energy jet rushed into the force field and exploded around Carl. Just as Carl was about to transfer space, he found that everything around him had slowed down. Not only matter, but even his thoughts were slowing down. Finally, Carl looked up at Binghua and opened his mouth to say something. But before Carl could say anything, Carl and the small space around him completely fell into a state of stasis. Seeing this, Binghua carried out two wall-like metal devices from the arsenal, and then the two devices quickly flew to both sides of Karl, extended the interfaces to lock each other, and started the internal engine to start moving inward according to the preset program. Infuse stagnant energy. In this way, Karl turned his head slightly to look at Binghua and was completely sealed into the stasis device. In this way, Binghua's main purpose of sneaking into the Styx galaxy this time has been completed.